Thomas Dale Theater Program production students, and welcome to your sewing machine. This is machine number 4. It is an Elna 2130. In this video, we are going to walk through everything that you need to know about this machine, including all the pieces and parts and how they work, as well as winding a bobbin, threading the machine, sewing with the machine, and then packing it up so that we can keep it nice and clean for all future students to use. If you are referencing this video just for the purposes of reminding yourself how to wind a bobbin or to thread the machine, you could skip ahead to those portions in the video. But if you have not, we need you to watch this entire video because every machine operates just a little bit differently and you need to know your machine. So when you get your machine, it will come in a bag and you will take it out of the bag and you will place it firmly on the table. And it should look nice and neat like this, all nice and clean. All the pieces are here. The pedal has been well taken care of and put back. You'll also see in your bag that you have a cheat sheet. Inside the bag with the cheat sheet, you will see that on the cheat sheet, there is a QR code for the video that you are watching right now. This is rule number 1, which is know your machine. Watch the entire video before you use this machine, especially if this is the first time you're using machine number 4, which is the Elna 2130. Again, if you have watched this video and you just need to skip ahead, down here are the timestamps for winding the bobbin and threading the machine so that you can get started sewing. All right, the back side of this cheat sheet includes all of the parts that are labeled on this machine. I'm going to walk you through all of those parts. On the front of the cheat sheet includes a QR code for a very helpful video that includes an animation that shows how the machine works. This video walks through the 5 key parts of the machine, which I will point out when we go through the entire tour of the video, but I highly encourage you to watch that. It's only 2 minutes long and it is extremely helpful. Down here on the back, at the bottom, are some troubleshooting tips so that if you are experiencing trouble and heartache and frustration, you have some ideas for how to troubleshoot your machine. All right, in this next part of the video, we're going to walk through all of the parts of your Elna 2130. All right, we're going to walk through all the parts of the Elna 2130. I'm going to start by pulling out the presser foot and power. I'm going to unwind it. On this model, the power and the presser foot are together in the same wires. This presser foot controls the speed of the machine. You use your foot, just like a gas pedal on a car, to control the speed of the machine. This power cord and presser foot only goes with machine number 4. So it is extremely important that you keep this with the machine in the bag. We have numbered all of the parts. So you see number 4, number 4, number 4, so that we can try to make sure that this stays with this machine. I'm going to place this firmly on the ground. I am going to plug in the machine. Someone left it on. Okay. So there is a power switch right here next to where the power cord attaches to the machine. Click that power switch, it turns on. This one has a light so you can see, so you know that the machine is on. All right. We're going to start up here at the top of the machine. So at the top we have the bobbin winder spindle. This is the little spindle that is used for winding the thread onto a bobbin. So the bobbin is the little spool that sits down inside the machine that feeds the thread up to create the thread on the back side of the fabric. This bobbin winder spindle is what you use to thread or wind the bobbin. It also turns the machine into bobbin winding mode by clicking it over or clicking it back into sewing mode if it's clicked over there. I'll show you how to wind a bobbin later in the video. This is the bobbin winder stopper, and it holds the thread or helps guide the thread as it's being wound so that it's nice and tight. We always machine wind our bobbins. We do not hand wind the bobbins, because hand wound bobbins get really messy and can actually cause the the machine to sew incorrectly. So we always machine wind our bobbins. All right, here next to this area, I'm going to pull up on this. This is the thread spool pin. And this is where the thread sits for the machine. This is the thread that's going to go down through the machine and produce the top thread on the top side of the fabric. So I am now going to walk you through the pieces and parts that are the key parts of this machine. And I'm going to do it by slowly threading the machine. So as I mentioned earlier, all machines are just a little bit different, but they all have the same fundamental parts and they all work in the same fundamental way. So the first thing I'm looking for is a guide that is going to bring the thread down into what's called the tension assembly. And that guide on this machine is right here. You'll see there's a number 1 right here. So that is actually going to bring the thread down into the tension assembly. So the tension assembly is right inside the machine right here. It includes a pair of plates that hold the thread together so that the thread is kept nice and clean and taut while it is being plunged through the fabric. The tension assembly and how tightly the thread is being held is controlled by the thread tension dial, which on this machine is right here. The thread tension dial can be very helpful in troubleshooting your machine if it's not sewing correctly. But it can also be the number 1 reason why it's not sewing correctly, because if you don't understand why you're adjusting this, then don't touch it, because it can cause the machine to not sew correctly, because the tension is important for the type of thread and the type of fabric. All right, so we're going to keep going around here. There's a number 2 right here. Then we're going to come up, and the next piece that I'm looking for almost every machine has, is the take-up lever. The take-up lever on this machine is right here, and it's already out. If it was not visible, I would use the hand wheel to wind until the take-up lever is visible. This take-up lever will hold the thread, and as it moves up and down, will release the tension on the thread, allowing the machine to plunge the needle into the fabric with the thread. So I'm going to go around that, and there's a number 3 here that shows it going around, and then I'm coming right back down here. And the next thing I'm looking for is a guide that will help guide the thread into the needle. And on this machine, this right here is the guide that is going to hold the thread as it goes into the needle. So I'm going to go around that, and now it is ready to go into the needle. Now I'm going to thread the needle. A little handy tip is to freshly cut your thread so that it doesn't have any frayed ends. Makes it easier to go through the needle. And then we are going to thread from front to back. Always thread your needle from front to back. And there it is. I'm going to go through the little slit in the foot. So this whole piece down here is called the needle assembly. The needle assembly has the needle in it. It's held by this little pin right here, so you can change the needles in and out. And it also has this little foot. It looks like a little foot. Okay, this little foot is what holds the fabric down onto the machine while it is sewing. So if I had some fabric and I put it up under here, I would want that fabric to be held onto the machine while I'm sewing. So in order to press this foot down, this presser foot, there is a little lever on the side here, and if I lower it, it lowers the foot onto the fabric and it holds the fabric onto the machine. Lifting up on the lever lifts the foot. I'm going to pull that fabric out. This right here is called the needle plate. The needle plate has a hole in it where the needle plunges through the fabric into the machine and connects to the thread that's coming from the bobbin inside the machine. Also in the needle plate, it has holes for these little rough looking things right here. These are called feed dogs. And the feed dogs actually feed the fabric through the machine. They are timed by the internal mechanics of the machine to move the fabric at the right speed to sync up with the movement of the needle and the bobbin casing underneath to make even stitches. So the important thing is don't push the fabric through the machine. Just let the feed dogs do their job. They will move the fabric along. All right. So that's all those top parts. So now we're going to take a closer look at the inside where the bobbin lives. On this machine, it is what is called a front loader. So that means that we're going to actually slide off this front piece. Okay. You can see it has a little hook here, so you have to pull firmly to get it out. Okay. This is also super handy if you're like sewing a sleeve or something like that, so that you can get it to go around that. You don't have to have this on to sew. It is very helpful if your fabric is bigger. So because it's a front loader, the bobbin assembly actually lives underneath this. And this is actually the bobbin cover for the front of this machine, which is also handy because you can't lose the bobbin cover on this machine. So on the side, there is a little place where you can put your thumb or finger to basically just open it up. This inside is the bobbin casing. So on this machine, you have a casing that holds the bobbin inside this inner casing, and the bobbin is actually inside this piece of metal. There's a little lever right here that you can open to grab it so you can pull it out. That's where the bobbin lives. Right now there's no bobbin in there, but that's where the bobbin lives. Okay, so with the bobbin, we would place the bobbin inside, and I'll show you a little bit more about how to thread a bobbin for these machines. It would come through here a little later when we show you details on threading the machine. I'll do that a little slower. And then I will place this bobbin casing back in the machine. You'll see it has a little arm kind of sticking off of it, and oops, put that thread back in there. Little arm. So when you're putting this back in, you'll see that there's a little notch right here. That's how you know that it's lined up. So you will slide it right onto that pin with that little arm right there in that little notch. And now you know that the bobbin has been loaded into the machine. And then I need this thread to come up through that needle plate. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the hand wheel, manually plunging the thread down in. Now that's the top thread coming around. You can see it. It's going to catch that bottom thread. As you can see, it's going to come up that little arm. I am going to gently pull. Okay, and now that thread has come up through the top. And so now I have the threads ready to go. I am going to close this up. And since I'm sewing a bigger project, I'm going to put this back on. I'm just going to slide it on. And that is the tour of all of the pieces and parts that you need to be aware of for the Elna 2130. All right, so in this part of the video, we are going to learn how to wind the bobbin with the machine. So it is important to note that all bobbins, not all bobbins, but there are many different sizes of bobbins, okay? Sizes, shapes, materials. There's metal ones, there's plastic ones. You can see that these are all different. They look very similar, but you can see that they're different sizes, they're different widths this way, they have different size holes in them. So it is very, very important that you use the right bobbin for the machine, because if the bobbin is the wrong size, then it won't sew properly. So if you don't know, ask your teacher so that you can make sure you're using the right size bobbin for the machine. So for this one, we're using this metal bobbin right here. All right, so I'm going to put all these other ones over here to the side. And to wind the machine, oh, one more quick note. Always wind your machine. Always wind your bobbins with the machine. Don't hand wind your bobbins, okay? Because hand wound bobbins look all messy, and the thread as it comes out the bottom can come out in irregular ways and cause tangles and other bad stitches. So we always hand wind. We never hand wind. We always machine wind. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spool of thread. I'm going to pull up the pin, spool pin. I'm going to place the thread on the spool pin. I'm going to place it so that the thread comes around the back side because we don't want it to fight trying to get onto the bobbin. Then I'm going to put my thread through this little pair of discs right here. This little pair of discs works very similar to the tension assembly that's in the machine. It actually holds the thread nice and firm while it is being wound onto the spindle. Sorry, onto the bobbin. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my bobbin, and I am going to put the thread up through a hole in the bobbin so that the thread is ready to be wound onto the spindle. If you're using a plastic bobbin, they have tiny little holes, so it's to make sure you're finding the hole and coming up through. Now I'm going to insert the bobbin onto the winder spindle, and I am going to put the machine in winding mode by clicking the spindle over, and now I'm going to start to wind the machine. So I'm going to wind the machine by pressing on the foot pedal. I'm going to hold the thread up. I'm going to start really slow. Okay, it seems to be working. I'm going to stop and cut the little tail off so that it doesn't get tangled, and I'm going to keep winding. And I will just keep going until the bobbin is full. But I'm not going to fill it up for this video because I want to save my thread. So when it is full, I will click it over. Now the machine is back in sewing mode, and I will lift the bobbin off. So now I have thread on the bobbin. I'm ready to go. We would want to keep winding it until the bobbin was actually full. So it looks kind of like that. So it's full and has enough thread for the whole project. And then I'm going to cut the thread. So now I have a bobbin, it's ready to go. Put it down here, and I am going to remove the thread so that I can use that same thread to thread the top of the machine. Congratulations, you have just wound the bobbin. All right, so now we're ready to thread the machine. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to thread with two different colors. I'm going to use this top thread, this maroon color, and the bottom thread, this darker navy black color. And that's so that you'll be able to easily see the difference between the top thread and the bottom thread. But for your project, you probably will use the same thread so that it becomes not visible and it matches your whatever you're sewing your project. So I'm going to start with the top. And I am going to place the spool on the pin. I am going to look for the guide. That is number 1, and there's a little number 1 right here. This is the guide. I am then going to go down through the tension assembly. I'm going to make sure that the needle is up when I do that, because that means that the plates are open and can receive the thread. I'm going to come down. You'll see that there's a number 2 right here. I'm going to come through there. I'm coming back up. I'm looking for the take-up lever. I can't see it, so I'm going to use the hand wheel to turn it until the take-up lever is up here. Then I'm going to go around the take-up lever, and there's a number 3 with an arrow that shows it going around this way through there. Then I'm going to come down, coming to the needle assembly. I'm looking for the guide that will guide the thread to keep it in front of the needle, and on this machine it's right here. So I'm now around that guide. I am now ready to go into the needle. I'm going to lower the foot so it's easy to see the needle. I'm going to raise the needle up as far as it will go. I'm going to cut the thread so I have a nice clean cut that isn't frayed. Make my life easier in getting it into the needle. I'm going to thread the needle from front to back. I am going to lift the foot up. And the thread is going to go through the little slit in the foot and out to the back of the machine. We've threaded the top. Now we need to thread the bottom. So remember, on this machine, it's a front loader. So I'm going to slide off this piece. It has a handle underneath that you can pull, and you have to pull firmly to get it off because it has this piece that holds it in. I'm going to bring that to the side. Then I'm going to open the little door. There's a little spot here where you can have put your finger. Then I see that I've got the little bobbin casing. I'm going to hold that lever up and pull it out. There's the bobbin casing. I am going to take my bobbin and I am going to hold it so that the thread is coming this way. I'm going to take a look at the bobbin casing. And if you hold it this way, you can see that there's a little piece of the bobbin casing right here that's going to hold that thread nice and firm as it comes out. It's kind of like tension plates, kind of like these pieces here. So I want to make sure that the thread is going to go through this little piece and out that little hole. So I want the thread to be coming this way when I put it into the bobbin casing. So I put it in there. Thread is coming this way. Put through that little slit, and then I'm going to pull it underneath that. There's another little piece right there that is holding it. And now it's coming through that little hole. Then I am going to carefully hold it this way. It's very easy for it to slip out. You guys probably saw that on the video earlier. So I want to hold it to kind of upright so that it doesn't fall out. And I'm going to use this little lever here with my thumb to hold it. I'm going to position it in my hand with the little arm up, and I'm looking for that little notch where the arm fits. I'm going to slide it onto the pin that's in there, and that little arm goes right in that little notch. Now this thread is ready to come up through the needle plate. So in order to do that, I'm going to hold onto the thread. I'm going to use the hand wheel to plunge the thread down. You'll see that it travels around the bobbin casing. You can see that red thread. Okay, and it catches that black thread from the bobbin, and I'm gently going to pull, and it comes right up through the top, and I'm just going to use my scissors to help it out through the hole. Now I have the thread, and it's ready to go. So I'm going to close up the bobbin case cover. I'm going to align these little pieces so that it will just pop right back on. And now this machine is ready to sew. All right, so now we're all ready to go. We've threaded the machine with the top thread through the top. We have the bobbin thread coming up through the needle plate, and we're ready to go. So we're going to take our fabric. This is our project, and we have two pieces of fabric that we want to sew together. So they are all together. We are going to insert the fabric underneath the presser foot. We are going to use the presser foot lever to lower the foot onto the fabric. So now the fabric is firmly in the machine and held between the presser foot and the feed dogs. And I am going to begin to press on the foot pedal. And remember, this works like gas in a car. So if I press it harder, it's going to go faster. So I'm going to start really softly. And it seems to be working. I don't hear any crashing or anything that sounds like something's broken. So now I want to lock that stitch in place before I continue sewing, because I don't want it to unravel on me. So the common way to do that is actually to sew backwards with the machine so that you lock the stitch in. On this machine, the reverse stitch lever is right here on the front. You hold it down, and what that does is actually makes the feed dogs push the fabric in the opposite direction and has the machine sew backwards. So I'm now going to sew backwards. I'm holding down the reverse stitch lever. I'm going to press very lightly with my foot. I'm now sewing backwards. And now I've let go of the stitch on the reverse stitch lever. I'm going to continue sewing. I can speed up as it feels good, and slow down as I get closer to the end. And then I'm going to lock that end stitch in. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to hold down the reverse stitch lever. And I'm going to stitch backwards. I'm going to stitch forwards again. And now I'm done. So I am going to lift up the presser foot lever, which lifts the foot up. And I am going to gently pull my project out from the side. And you can see that it has the two pieces of thread. I'm going to cut those. And now you can see that we have a very nice top stitch, a nice back stitch. The tension looks good. And congratulations, you have just sewed your first project. All right, so now we are finished sewing and we are ready to pack up the machine and make sure that all the pieces and parts stay with the machine and that it is all well kept and ready for our next friend to use it to sew another project. So packing up, I'm going to remove my project and I'm going to put it to the side. And the first thing that I'm going to do is remove the thread, the top thread from the machine. So I'm going to lift it off of the pin. I'm going to pull it out. I am going to wind it up to make it nice and neat. I'm I'm going to ask my teacher where to put this thread. I am going to retract the pin. It's very important that you retract this pin. If it breaks off, we won't be able to use the machine. So I'm going to press firmly and it's going to go right down back into the machine. Okay. And if we remember, this machine is a front loader. So what we're going to need to do is pull here on the side. There's a little place where you can put your hand. You have to pull firmly. It has these pieces here. Now I can get into the bobbin assembly. I'm going to use this little lever right here to pull the bobbin assembly out, or sorry, the bobbin casing out. I'm going to dump the bobbin into my hand, pull the thread out. I'm going to wind that thread back up so that it's nice and neat. I'm going to ask my teacher where these go, so they stay nice and neat. I'm now going to take this bobbin casing, I'm going to put it back in the machine. Do not lose these. It's extremely important that all the parts stay with the machine. I'm looking at this little arm. I'm going to line it up with the little notch. Now it's sitting down in there. I'm going to close the little door. Line up my pieces here so it snaps shut. Then I am going to turn off the machine. There's a little power switch. And I'm going to unplug the machine. I'm going to take the presser foot, not the presser foot, excuse me, the foot pedal. And I am going to neatly wind the cord around the foot pedal. Nice and neat. I'm going to put the foot pedal back into the centerpiece of the machine so that it all stays together. I am not going to take the power cord off because, again, we want to try to keep this foot pedal with this machine because it does not work with other machines and this machine won't work without it. So now this machine, I'm going to take my cheat sheet, and if I've taken out any other things like screwdrivers or other stuff that's in the bag, I'm going to bring all these things together. I'm going to put all this back in the bag, and then I'm going to put this bag back on the shelf with the other machines so that it stays nice and clean, and all the parts are going to stay together, and this machine can be used by the theater program to sew costumes and other things for years to come. So always take care of the machines. Thank you guys, and happy sewing!